Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Kari, and today I'm going to be doing the mid-year book freakout tag, where basically I give you a little update on my reading so far this year, do a little check-in, let you know how things are going, and also kind of talk a little bit about my plans for the second half of the year. I will say that I've kind of made my own little combination of questions for the mid-year book freakout tag this year, kind of questions from the original freakout tag, plus some questions from other creators that I really like the questions that they did, so I kind of took those questions as well. So make sure you check out the description box where I give credit to everybody that I kind of took their questions from. I will be referencing my 2023 reading journal throughout this video because a lot of the questions that they ask in these questions refer to a lot of statistics that I keep in my reading journal, so it'd be really easy to check this out. I will be doing a little update video on my reading journal here on my channel because the video that I did back in January where I set up all my spreads for the year with you guys, you seem to really enjoy that video, so I thought that it would be fun to do a little update to see what is the status of all these spreads that I've done, and just to give you a little update on how my reading journal is going so far this year. If you didn't see that original video back in January where I set up my 2023 reading journal, I'll link that down in the description box just so you can get all caught up before the update video that's coming soon. So the first question is, how many books have you read so far this year? So far I've read 26 books this year and my goal is 60, so I'm a little bit behind. I should be up to 30 by now. I'm a little bit behind. I'm not too worried about it though, because I always kind of slow down my reading throughout the summer, but then once fall hits, I like accelerate in my reading and like I catch up on everything that I'm behind, so I'm really not too worried about it. But so far I've read 26 books. So the second question, it jumps right into it. It asks, what is your favorite book so far this year? And if you know me, you know that I can't just pick one book for anything. I mean, that's going to be a trend for this whole video. I can't pick just one because I've read a good few 5-star books this year, but I have to say that my two favorite that I've read so far is Vladimir by Julia May Jonas. I love this book. I've already talked about this book so much on my channel. It's probably not a surprise that it's here, but I truly love this book. I want to find more books like this book. And then another favorite book that I've had so far this year is Big Swiss by Jen Began. Like, these two types of books are just me books. Like, no plot, just vibes, relationships, like women who don't really know what they're doing in life. I don't know. This is just my type of book. So if you know more books like this, drop them in the comments. I need more books like this in my life. The next question is, what is the most disappointing book that you've read so far this year? And I have to say, it's Maggie O'Farrell's The Marriage Portrait. I had been wanting to read this since I first read the blurb, but before it ever even came out, I was really excited about it because it centers around the Medici family, which I'm fascinated by the Medici family. Catherine de Medici was a queen of France who was just like unhinged, and I love learning about history about her, so I was like, okay, that would be cool to learn about another Medici family member. And I finally ended up picking up a copy of this book once it was longlisted for the Women's Prize for Fiction this year. And I have to say, obviously, if this is the answer to this question, I was so disappointed by this book. I felt like there was so much potential. It has a really cool setup, but I was just so let down. It was just so drawn out and like the same thing over and over again. Like, I really feel like there was a missed opportunity to feel like a sense of dread throughout this book. Like, this woman thinks her husband's going to kill her. Like, I should be feeling more stressed out than I ever did while reading this book. And also, it's just a beautiful book. The cover is just really beautiful, and like the end papers are really beautiful, and even the naked cover is really beautiful. Like, I was just really disappointed. The next question is, what genre have you read from the most this year? So the genre that I've read the most so far this year is literary fiction, which I'm not surprised at all about, which we'll talk a little bit more about later, because I've read a lot of prize books this year, and those are all literary fiction, so I'm not surprised about that. My second most read genre is nonfiction. I've read 6 nonfiction so far this year. My next genre is thrillers. I've read 3 thrillers. I'm really sad about that because normally I like blast through thrillers. I'm a huge thriller reader, so I'm really sad that because I've been prioritizing prize books this year, I haven't been reading many thrillers, and I need to fix that in the second half of the year. The next category is horror. I've read 2 horror, and I've read 1 poetry collection this year. Question number 5 is, what's a book that made you cry? I love when a book makes me cry, so that like adds points to a book if it can make me cry. And this year, I really can't think of any other book that made me cry other than Big Swiss. Now, if you read the synopsis of this book and you're thinking, Kari, why would that story make you cry? It's not really the story. I can't really tell you what it is that made me cry because I don't want to spoil anything, even though it's like the thing that made me cry is literally like a subplot. But I still don't want to tell you about it because I don't want to spoil anything, even though it's not a spoiler, but it made me cry. But yeah, Big Swiss made me cry. Question number 6 is, what's a book that made you happy? Now, obviously, if I enjoyed a book, it made me happy. So, I mean, any of the books that I gave 4 or 5 stars, I could say that book. But the book that I'm choosing, it made me happy in a very specific way because it reminded me of one of my favorite books of all time. And you know, when you have a favorite book like that, you can never get that like initial feeling back. Like, even if it makes you really happy to reread it, like you'll never have that initial spark again of loving that book. But this book really brought back that like feeling of how much I loved my original favorite book, and that book was Escape and Control by Steve Hollyman. So this book made me so happy because it gave me House of Leaves vibes, which this is one of my top favorite books of all time. I love House of Leaves, and this really gave me that feeling. Now, this book definitely isn't as intense as House of Leaves. I mean, just look at the length. There's no way that it could be as intense as House of Leaves because that book is like 500 or 600 pages long. I mean, this is just like a regular length book, but like the way that the story works is very similar, and it's like kind of like a story within a story and people communicating within the story and annotations and all those like really fun elements of House of Leaves. You'll find that here in like a more compact way because this definitely isn't as elaborate as House of Leaves, definitely not, but it still gave me that really fun element of House of Leaves, which I absolutely loved. I would say that if you're curious about House of Leaves but the length of it really puts you off, I would try to read this and see if just the style and like the way that the story works and like communicating throughout the book in a book and like the annotations and all that stuff, to see if you really even like that kind of story. I would try this out and see if you like it, and then you will know better if you want to give House of Leaves a chance. Also, I'm obsessed with this cover. I think that this is so cool. I bought this at Smith & Son in Paris on Independent Bookshop Day, and this was like strictly a cover buy. I thought the cover was so cool, and little did I know that I would go on to love this book and be so happy that it reminded me of House of Leaves. Question number 7 is, name a new or new to you favorite author. And I have to say, I mean, obviously it has to be one of my favorite books, right? I'm gonna say Julia May Jonas because I'm definitely gonna pick up whatever she publishes next just because of how much I love this book. I really enjoyed her style of writing, and it was really smart, and I'm really looking forward to seeing that in whatever she writes next. The next question is, what's the best book to movie or series adaptation that you watched this year? So I just recently listened to the audiobook for Slonim Woods 9, which is a nonfiction book about the Sarah Lawrence cult, where basically there's this house of roommates of college students, and one of the girls' dad moves in with them after being released from prison, and basically he starts a cult with all these kids there, and it was an absolutely fascinating read. The audiobook was very well done, and this book is just from the perspective of one of the college students that experienced that, and he really makes an effort to not tell the stories of other people that experienced the cult, because for example, once he gets out of it, that's when the book ends, even though that's not when the cult itself ends. So you're really just kind of like left hanging, like, okay, well, what happens after that? Like, it's still happening even though he leaves, and so you really don't know what happens. But there's a really great documentary on Hulu called Stolen Youth about the whole thing, and so I watched that as soon as I was done with the book. Like, I was so excited to finish the audiobook because I was like, I need to go find out more. I need to know the stories of all the other kids that were there, and it was just really good and insane. It's an insane documentary. If you like true crime, you're gonna love it. And like I said, the story is so much bigger than the story that's presented in the book because he really just tells his own personal story. But in the documentary, you get the stories of all the other kids and what happens to the cult after the author of this book leaves. Like, it goes on so much longer after that, and it was just really good. So I would say that that's my favorite book to series adaptation this year. The next question is, what's a book that you're surprised to have liked so much? And I'm gonna say In the Miso Soup by Ryo Murakami. I read this based on the recommendation of a viewer, Lily, who watches the channel, and they had commented on a video where I was gushing about how much I love Bunny by Mona Awad, and they were like, you know, I really think that you would like In the Miso Soup. It really gives the same like weird vibes. And so I was like, okay, I'll give it a go. And it's not that I didn't think that I would like it, it's just that I went into it so blind, like really just on the information that it's similar vibes to Bunny, like not in story, but just vibes. And so I just went in so blindly that I'm surprised how much I loved it because I really didn't do any research on it. I just went in fully trusting Lily, and they didn't disappoint. I loved this book. I'm really looking forward to reading more from Ryo Murakami. The next question is, what's a book that you've started reading this year and you still need to finish? Now, if you've watched my Women's Prize for Fiction video, you'll know that I didn't get to finish Demon Copperhead before the prize was announced. Now, I don't know what it is about this book, but I'm just reading it so slowly, and I'm really enjoying reading it so slowly. Like, I don't know if that's ever happened to me where I want to be reading a book slowly. I usually try to like rip through books as fast as possible, and like I love that because I just want to know what's going to happen next. But there's something about this book, I'm just really enjoying reading it very slowly. I don't know what it is, and it's not because I'm not enjoying it. I'm absolutely loving this book. I'm fairly positive it's going to be one of my favorite books of all time. So like, it's just really strange that I'm wanting to read it so slowly. So anyway, this is definitely a book that I still need to finish in the second half of this year. And actually another prize book that I started but I haven't finished yet is Whale by Chung Myung Kwan, which I started reading for the International Booker Prize. And I was trying to finish reading it before the winner was announced, but then once the winner was announced and it wasn't Whale, it was Time Shelter. I was in like such a rush to jump to the Women's Prize for Fiction shortlist because I was on such a short timeline for that I was like, okay, I'm gonna go back to Whale later after I'm less pressed for time to be reading the Women's Prize shortlist, and I just haven't gone back to it yet. But again, even though I'm still reading this one after a long period of time, that doesn't mean that I'm not enjoying it. I'm actually really enjoying this one, and I'm actually kind of surprised at how much I'm enjoying this book. All right, question 11 is a doozy. It's what's a new release you haven't read yet but want to? I've been accumulating so many new releases. I love new releases. I'm like a new release whore, okay? I love me a new release. I love reading it as soon as possible. I've collected so many new releases this year, and I haven't gotten to very many of them at all because I've been so focused on prize books. I've been reading so much international bookers, so much Women's Prize for Fiction, that I just haven't had time to get into my new releases. So really the second half of the year is going to be me focusing on my new releases that I'm so freaking excited about. The number one new release that I'm going to be prioritizing is definitely The Happy Couple by Nisha Dolan. I've been screaming from the rooftops about the release of this book since it was announced last year, and I've been so excited to pick this book up. I finally have it in my hands. I even have the signed edition, and it also has sprayed edges, which I'm really excited about. And I'm just so excited to read this book. I've talked about it a lot because I loved Nisha Dolan's Exciting Time, so I'm just going into this book blind. I really don't even know what it's about, but I hope that I love it. I'm pretty sure that I will. But this is my number one priority of new releases that have already come out for the second half of the year to be reading. But like I said, I've been accumulating a lot of new releases. So I'm just going to give you a little preview of the new releases that I'm going to be diving into the second half of the year that I'm very excited about. So we have The Protege by Jody Gurman. This is an academic setting thriller. The Nursery by Sylvia Molnar. This was a cover by. I don't really know what this is about other than motherhood, cover by, motherhood theme. I'm in, sign me up. The Guest by Emma Cline. The Whispers by Ashley O'Drain. Ashley O'Drain's The Push I read back in 2021 and I loved that book. I stayed up so late on a work night trying to finish that book because I just had to know how it was going to end. So I have no idea what this book is about. I picked it up strictly on the fact that I was obsessed with The Push. I can't wait to read this one. The Last Word by Taylor Adams. A House with Good Bones by T. Kingfisher. Death of a Bookseller by Alice Slater. Peter Swanson's The Kind Worth Saving, which is a sequel to The Kind Worth Killing. Also, there's two books that have already come out, but I haven't gotten a copy of them yet, and that's The Rachel Incident and The Chateau. So that's a lot of new releases to be getting to in the second half of the year, but I'm very excited about it. And in that same vein, the next question is, what's your most anticipated release for the second half of the year? And guys, this is easy. This might be the easiest question that they've asked so far. It's Rouge by Mona Awad. Duh. I am so excited to read this book. If you've spent any amount of time on my channel before, you'll know that Bunny by Mona Awad is one of my favorite books of all time. I can't wait to read another Mona Awad. I think I'm gonna love this book. Honestly, again, I have no idea what this book is about, and I don't care. I don't care what it's about. I am so excited to read it, and I have some very exciting news, and it's that I got my first arc ever as a book reviewer, and it's for Rouge. I'm so excited. Like, I can't believe that my first arc ever is for my most anticipated book of like all time. I'm so thankful that they sent it to me. I don't have it physically yet with me, but it's on the way, and I can't wait to get my hands on it. I'm so excited to read that. Let me know in the comments below if you would like a dedicated reading vlog to that book, because I feel like that's something that I might want to do. Question 13 is, what's your next big priority for your reading? And that's easy. It's this chonker, Les Miserables by Victor Hugo. I'm buddy reading this with Anya from Anya's Bell Jar. I'll link her channel down below in the description box. And we're reading this over the next few months, and I've got to say, I'm intimidated. This book is huge. It's definitely going to be the biggest book that I've ever read in my entire life, and I'm scared of it. But if you don't know, I live in Paris, France, and obviously Les Miserables is a French classic, like one of the biggest French classics of all time, so I have to read it, and I am excited to read it. I'm just very overwhelmed by the fact that this book is like 1,300 pages. So that's my next big priority. Even though I'm not just going to be only reading this book, I'm definitely going to be sprinkling in other lighter books, like those new releases that I talked about before. I'm definitely going to be sprinkling those books in throughout while I'm reading this book. The next question is, what's the most beautiful book that you've gotten this year? I'm kind of putting books into two categories here. Beautiful, like regular published books, but also like collectible classic books. So the most beautiful, like regular published books, I'm going to say again, Escape and Control by Steve Hollyman. This pink, it just speaks to me. Like, this is me in a color. This is just such a cool cover. Like, once you read the story, you'll know like the importance of keys on a keyboard. Like, this is just graphic design perfection. And also I'm going to say I love the cover of Pod by Lillian Paul. Can you tell that I have a thing for purple and pink? I didn't really like this book too much, but I'm obsessed with the cover. Then for collectible books, I definitely have to say the Harper Muse Classics Jane Austen editions. I actually have a YouTube short on my channel where I unbox these books if you want a closer look at them. These books are absolutely stunning. I'll link that short down below if you're interested in seeing these books in more detail. But these are in the same style as the Thomas Nelson season editions, which I collect as well. So these look really nice on the shelves next to those Thomas Nelson editions. So I have Pride and Prejudice, Mansfield Park, and Northanger Abbey. And 3 more books in this series are going to be published. I think it's in November. So I'll definitely be completing my collection when those come out. And then just 2 more books in beautiful classics editions. These are also by Harper. They're the Harper Painted editions. And I have Frankenstein by Mary Shelley and Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. So they come in these like sleeve things. But if you take these off, I mean, these are absolutely stunning. They're so beautiful. I haven't even read Frankenstein yet, but I was sold by this lightning painting on here, and it's like raised. The paint is raised. I just think that this is such a beautiful book. And for Jane Eyre, I mean, I've read Jane Eyre. I love Jane Eyre. It's one of my favorite books of all time. I'm always sold on a beautiful copy of Jane Eyre. So question 15 is, what's been your bookish highlight of this year so far? The first one I'm going to say is reading the most books from the Women's Prize for Fiction long and short list than I've ever read in previous years. I'm really proud of myself for how many I read this year, and I read the full shortlist with the exception of not quite finishing Demon Copperhead yet, but I am pretty proud of myself. You know, that was a 2023 goal that I had for myself this year, and I'm quite proud of myself for that, so that's definitely a highlight. Another highlight is definitely like discovering the International Booker Prize. I mean, I read 5 books that were longlisted and shortlisted for the International Booker, and like I said before, I'm like in the middle of Whale, which would be a 6th book, and I didn't dislike any of these books. Some of these books got 5 stars, and a lot of them got 4 stars. So I'm so excited that I got into the International Booker this year. It's definitely a highlight of the year, and I'm for sure going to keep following the International Booker in the coming years. A third bookish highlight that I've had so far this year actually just happened the other day, and that was going to see Ed Winters, who's the author of This Is Vegan Propaganda, who was here in Paris at a bookstore doing like a talk and a book signing, and I was able to hear him talk in person about animal rights and being plant-based and all of that, which was incredible because I absolutely love watching his YouTube channel. It's incredible. If you're plant-based or thinking about going plant-based, I would definitely recommend his YouTube channel, and I would obviously also recommend his book This Is Vegan Propaganda. This is an incredible book. I read it when it came out last year in January 2022. It's very good. And so a bookish highlight this year is definitely going to see Ed Winters and having my book signed and getting to hear him talk. And my fourth and final bookish highlight is something that I've already talked about, and that's getting my first ARC as a book reviewer. I'm so excited to have reached that level where I'm considered worthy of sending an ARC to, and let alone an ARC for Rouge by Mona Awad, like one of my most anticipated book releases ever. Like, that means so much to me, and I'm so excited about it, and so that's definitely a highlight of my year so far, and I'm so thankful for that opportunity. And the last question is, what's your favorite video that you've made so far on your YouTube channel this year? I think I'd have to say a video that I referenced earlier in this video, and that's my 2023 reading bullet journal spread setup video. Again, that will be linked down in the description box if you're interested in that, but it was just really fun. It's a different type of video to film, and I really got to put my 2 creative hobbies together. Like, my reading journal is such an outlet outlet for my creativity and like because I love to craft, even though it's not like the most artistic, beautiful thing that has ever been made. It's really fun for me because I love crafting, just like little hobby crafting. And obviously making YouTube videos is quite a creative hobby to have. And so to be able to cross those two creative hobbies together, it was just really, really fun. And the fact that you guys liked it so much really made it even more fun for me. So I'm really looking forward to doing that update video of how my reading journal is going so far this year. All right, guys, so that was my mid-year check-in. I hope that you enjoyed this video. I'm gonna have all the questions that I answered in the description box. I would love if you copy paste all the questions into a comment and answer these questions for yourself. That would be really, really fun for me to see how your reading year is going so far. Definitely don't hesitate to do that. Thank you so much for your support so far this year. I really, really appreciate it. I have a lot of plans for more videos for the second half of this year, so I would love if you stick around. If you're not subscribed yet, I would love if you did so. I would love to have you back, and I'll talk to you all again next time. Bye.